जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता। पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा। विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जलधि तरंग। तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे। गाहे तव जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता। जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे।
Must remember that freedom is not free. The freedom that we have today as citizens of free India is not free. It was earned. It has been paid in blood.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Today it is an honor and a pleasure for me to introduce you all to this very particular session on this very special occasion of 26 January Republic Day. It is that historic moment when India's constitution came. So first of all, wishing you a very happy Republic Day. Let us remember the golden heritage of our country and feel proud to be a part of this great nation. My name is Harsh and I'm going to moderate this session for all of you, wherein I'm going to introduce you all about the event and perhaps the person who is going to interact and address all of us. First of all, I request you to kindly acknowledge and welcome the presence of our esteemed guest, Lieutenant General Sokin Chauhan, who is here with us. I would like to request all the persons, those who are watching this session on YouTube, to kindly upload in the comment section and welcome the presence of our guest. Lieutenant General Sokin Chauhan is an alumnus of St. Columbus High School, New Delhi, the National Defense Academy, Defense Service Staff College, the Army War College, and the prestigious National Defense College. The general was commissioned into the Indian Army 11 Gorkha Rifles in December 1979. Prior to his appointment as the DGAR, the general had commanded 1 Corps, Indian Army's oldest and largest strike corps, the 8th Mountain Division in Western Ladakh and 70 Mountain Brigade both in Sopian in South Kashmir and in Eastern Ladakh. The general has vast experience in conduct of counter-terrorist operation both in Kashmir Valley and the Northeast. Lieutenant General Sokin Chauhan was awarded Param Vishisht Seva Medal, Ati Vishisht Seva Medal, Yuddha Seva Medal, Sena Medal, and Vishisht Seva Medal. Was selected as the chairman of Ceasefire Monitoring Group in August 2018. Post-retirement from the Army in March 2018. Earlier, the General was the Director General of Assam Rifles, India's oldest and largest paramilitary force. He has served at the apex level in Ministry of Defense and the Ministry of Home Counter-Insurgency, Counter-Terrorism, Border Guarding, and Human Resource Management. He also has a vast experience in military diplomacy since he was the defense attaché in the Indian Embassy in Nepal for the 3.5 years 2004 to 2007. And I believe his profile has so many things, so many glories, which I won't be able to explain in next few minutes. But I'm pretty sure during this conversation, we are going to learn a lot from him. So first of all, sir, I welcome you to in this session. Thank you so much for joining and agreeing to share your thoughts with us.
Thank you very much for calling me, Harsh. It's indeed a pleasure to be with you all. And I hope we both and the audience listening in enjoyed this session. I wish you all a very happy Republic Day. I must remind you how important Republic Day is to our nation. Since you're aware, this is our historic Republic Day. We are coming after a difficult time. Our nation has faced challenges in the year 2020, which was our 70th Republic Day. This will be the 71st Republic. And I wish everyone all happiness, all success. I wish you all much better 2020. I'm here to answer your questions and to hope you all gain from whatever I am able to.
It's our pleasure.
I spent 44 years. Yeah. I joined the Indian Army in 1976 January. So it is my 45th year after joining the Army that I'm here. And I would love to gain my experience.
It's our pleasure, sir. So, sir, moving to the topic of today's session, which we have chosen is understanding the value of discipline in armed forces. Sir, my first question to you is, the armed forces place a really high value on discipline and the importance of routine, planning things out and doing them at the same time. Sir, it's a kind of request to you. Kindly explain our viewers about the importance of discipline in armed forces.
Thank you, Harsh. Thank you very much. See, what is discipline actually? When we talk about discipline and we say a person is disciplined or is not disciplined, how do we actually define what discipline is? Okay. So discipline to me and to people in the armed forces is doing the right thing at the right time. Okay. And it is dependent upon what we call the 4 rights in the army. That when you are given an order, you reach someplace at the right time, the right dress, with the right attitude, and so these are the 4 rights that you are. That everything should be right about you: your dress, your time, your demeanor, and your act. That's what we define ourselves in the army. These 4 rights.
All right, sir. It was really a very wonderful and insightful answer from your side. Sir, my next question to you is, life in the armed forces isn't like any other. When you are protecting your country border at 16,000 feet above sea level at the temperature of minus 50 degrees Celsius at the Siachen Glacier, it can't be just another job. Neither in battling an average temperature of 50 degrees in the blistering heat of Rajasthan. So it's a kind of request to you. Kindly please explain our viewers and put some light on the life in Indian Army, the struggles they endure every day so that the people like us can sleep in peace.
Thank you, Harsh. Very interesting question. Since I have fought on the Siachen Glacier in 1984, that is the year where we took the glacier. Let's talk about how you live and how you plan your life and how you actually exist in those different places. Firstly, as you said, 16,000, I would go a little further and say 18, 19, 20, 21,000. But those are the altitudes that we are fighting at in the Siachen Glacier. At 9,000 feet of sea level, we have something called an acclimatization for the human body, because a normal body can get enough oxygen at 9,000 feet. You cross 9,000 feet, you're actually in high altitude. So you do your first acclimatization of 7 days, wherein you train your body and you train your mind and you train your abilities to function above 9,000. Your body needs more oxygen. Your mind needs more oxygen. So the first 7 days are actually planned for this acclimatization at 9,000 feet. Then we have a second acclimatization period, 13,000 feet. And once again, you're moving into super high altitude, and you once again require this kind of acclimatization so your body is able to function at 30. And once you cross 16,000 feet, then you use super high altitude once again, where the third level of acclimatization. So by acclimatization, I meant the ability of your body to function at those heights. It requires a great discipline, it requires great physical capability, and it requires a mental capability to be able to function and to not get overawed by the odds that we face. And along with the fact that it is minus 50 degrees centigrade, you also have to fight the enemy. So Pakistan, as far as we're concerned, is on the other side of the Siachen Glacier. They are wanting to take it all the time. So you have to fight them. You have to fight the weather. You have to fight Asia. You have to fight your body, because it says that, look, I was not designed for this level of fighting. I was not designed for this height. So everything requires, from the beginning to the end, a great amount of physical fitness, a great amount of mental fitness, and an ability to function requires a great deal of courage. Same is your adaptability when you go to the desert to Rajasthan. Our desert, where sometimes the temperatures cross 50 degrees. There's sand all over. Inside the tanks and inside your vehicles, temperature. But you train your body to ensure that it functions at optimum levels even at. So you're right. It's a difficult thing, but it comes through great amount of physical fitness and great amount of mental fitness and adaptability.
Indeed, sir. I think again it was a quite insightful answer from your side, and I must say it's a kind of privilege to be
Thank
able
you.
to hear all those things from you. Sir, my next question to you is it's a quite interesting question. How did you imagine army life before you joined? How did your perception change after serving?
I was like all of you. I just passed out of school. I'm talking of 1974 December. I wanted to appear for the IIT exam. I was preparing for the IIT exam. I was preparing for college. And I was also preparing for the UPSC exam for National Defense. Talking of 1975 January. Many of your parents were probably also young children. So in 1975, like I said, there was the IIT exam that was held in May. The exam, the UPSC exam was also held in May, as well as the college admissions, which were to start by June. So we were trying for everything, engineering, whatever we could, after graduating from school. So I was like everybody else. I remember appearing for my UPSC exam, and the result comes after about 2 months or 3 months. I had also appeared for my IIT exam, and I had also taken admission in the Hansraj College of Delhi for chemistry honor. All three were done together. I got all good Indian parents, middle class Indian parents. My parents had decided that I must do everything. One day when I was in class, I was told by my father that, look, you have passed the NDA written exam. Now you have to prepare for your services selection. So I prepared for the selection board. I passed. Then I was told you have to do a medical. So in between, my IIT results came when I was told I had passed IIT. Though my rank was little low, 150 or something, like 45 years ago. So I really forgot. So we decided that I would go to the national. After I passed the exam and was selected to go to the NDA. I joined the NDA January 7th of 1976. I was all of 17 years old. I was trained by my parents from Delhi, and we were to get down at Pune, where we would be received by the army authorities and taken to the National Defence Academy. We were prepared that it would be difficult physically, right? But we didn't know anything else. In NDA, we realized that physical fitness was just one part of the curriculum in India. Physical fitness, so mental fitness, you had to be capable of a lot of, and not only that, you had to study for your graduation. We were just passing out. We were just passed out of school. We had to do a BSc degree, and everyone knows how difficult studying for BSc is. There's mathematics, there's physics, chemistry, there is engineering, drawing, there is everything. On top of that, you had to pass your writing test. You had to pass physical test, you had to pass PT test, you had to pass your drill test, and everyday life in the academy was passing one test. But by the end of those 3 years at the National Defence Academy, when we passed out, we were very, very confident of ourselves. We were confident that we could deal with anything in life. Physically, we were very, very fit. From there, when we went to the Indian Military Academy, there is our final year of service-specific training. We just sailed through it because it was like easy because we'd done those 3 years at the National Academy. Later, when I joined the Indian Army in December 1979 as a second lieutenant, a lot of challenges are there. You have meant to command, you have to lead operations, and I remember, being told that I had to go to the Siachen Glacier. But it was my training at the National Academy, my training at the Indian Academy, that I didn't even feel that I would not be able to achieve something. I was that confident of myself that I could achieve everything and more because of the training and the discipline that I had inculcated with that team.
All right, sir. It was a quite inspiring journey, and I think the viewers who are watching this session, they will learn from this. Sir, my next question to you is: what are some things you missed about being in the service?
I have retired recently, 3 years back. After that, the government got me back as the chairman of the ceasefire monitoring group. You explained to the people. There, once again, I was dealing with the army. Okay, so once again, I was dealing with counters, the terrorists, the insurgents in Nagaland and Manipur and Arunachal. And once again, I was dealing with the Assam Rifles. So I was a part of the army structure again. What I miss most is, of course, I loved wearing my uniform. I felt very proud when I wore my uniform. I felt very proud of my abilities, very proud of the men I commanded. And that pride in belonging to the best organization in the world has become and is very important. What I miss are my friends, I miss my soldiers, I miss everything about everyone. I miss the life of the armed forces, I miss its discipline, I miss daily routine. Everything is extremely important. And I try my best that even after retiring, continue with my daily routine when I was. That's the way I am able to cope with life. I continued with everything. I haven't left anything.
All right, sir. Sir, my next question to you is, sir, what were your first few months out of the service like?
It is difficult in the sense that you've led one life for 45 years and suddenly you don't have the life with you anymore, right? So you miss people, you miss the people who are with you, you miss your officers, your friends, your soldiers, you miss your life. But life in the army has taught us how to cope with any kind of situation. And that discipline that it imbibed with me when I was the last 40 years, I have continued. I've continued the discipline, and as a result, I've been able to cope with all these issues. I don't feel there's a problem at all. And my keep talking to me. Some come and visit me. Yes, even during the COVID days, they have been able to come and visit me and sit down with me. So this camaraderie is the camaraderie for life. Harsh. This life never leaves you. This kind of living doesn't leave you. You're aware the president has given me this rank, which never will leave me. The rank always continues for an armed forces officer. So everything is the same. I had retired at the end of my name, not before. My rank has not retired. It's just me who is retired from. And I can only say that if my country ever wants me to do anything for them, I would run as fast as my legs could take. But nothing will give me greater pleasure than continue working.
Indeed, sir. Again, it was a quite inspiring answer from your side. Sir, my next question to you is there anything you wish civilians understood about army life?
Firstly, I wish civilians understood our ranks. How important a rank is. The army is extremely important. Secondly, I wish they understood our sacrifice. How much we have sacrificed for how many years, the first 45 years of my life have gone in living in different places. I wish they would understand that sacrifice. Many of my friends are no more, having been killed in battle, died in battle accidents, killed by terrorists, murdered by IDs. I wish they would be more caring for their widows. Many of them are no more. They've left younger. I wish people would understand this. I have noticed that people give us, at least the people who know us, give us a little bit or some respect. Okay, and in a nation like ours, that is very important for us, that we are told that yes, we respect service. Every nation must always respect service of their, which is the soldiers who actually, just as sometimes when you go on one of these flights and they say that the soldiers, the ex-soldiers and soldiers must board the flight first. I feel very happy. That we are being recognized for our sacrifice. So I expect that our nation should do this for us, to recognize our sacrifice and to help us out now that we are we are too old to serve in India. So I would wish that.
Indeed, sir. Again, it was a quite insightful, and I think it's a great message from your side. We all need to understand this, and I think the viewers, those who are watching this session, they will learn from this. And not only I think, but I do strongly believe this. Sir, moving to my last question of this session. Sir, actually the question is, what is that one piece of advice will be from your side, or which you would like to give to this new young generation?
I would give, my advice would be that don't take your freedom for granted. The Republic Day session of ours, every Republic Day we recognize the fact that we became a republic, an independent republic in 1940. Before that, we became an independent nation in 1947. And before that, we were slaves for a very long time. So the first thing to this generation would be, don't take this freedom. Freedom is not free. This freedom has cost life. And the people and these lives, this freedom has been bought by blood. By certain people to keep our freedom alive. So this younger generation must understand that nothing is free. If we are not vigilant, if we are not strong, protect ourselves, someone will take our freedom. And especially for a country like ours, as India, just our 74th Independence Day. Remember that in a world like ours and in a neighborhood like ours, if we don't protect ourselves and we don't make sure that we are strong and capable, we will lose our freedom. I want my younger generation to be disciplined, to be capable, to strengthen themselves and the country, so that at no stage should we ever lose the freedom again.
Sir, I think it was a quite wonderful advice from your side, and I can say that there's a lot to learn from you. The kind of energy you brought into this session was very inspiring for all of us. And thank you so much, sir, for joining and giving your important time on this very special occasion. It was a healthy discussion with you on the topic. We look forward to conduct more such sessions with you in future. Thank you so much, sir, for joining.
Thank you, Harsh. Thank you for calling me. Bye. All the best to you.
Thank you so much, sir. Happy Republic Day.
Bye.
Jai Hind.
Same to you. Jai Hind.